Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna grab a nappy here and just pick up this little pool of coffee that I spilt on my desk. I hope everybody's having an amazing day. Let's give YouTube a couple minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and oh my goodness, I have been having a week. But you know what? I'm so grateful because we look at things as the worst things that could possibly come into our lives. And we don't take note that there are people out there like struggling beyond anything that we find ourselves in. Sometimes, you come home from work and you got a little pebble mark on the finish on your car, right? Sometimes your kids are screaming for attention when you get home and you don't consider, some people out in the world would do anything just for a beater. Lots of times the parents are out there. I know my parents weren't home a lot when I was growing up. They were busy living their lives and putting a roof over our heads. And we don't appreciate those contributions, right? These days the kids are being born asking for their iPhones, and that's pretty much a truth. And if you really actually took a look at the pricing of some of these things, like, oh my goodness, how are we supposed to keep up, right? But that's the thing. We are expected to keep up or lose our place or fall behind or not be included or not enough, right? And a lot of times we can think this, but we think this because others out there who are making that movement, and it is in friendly competition. I always think this way, right? It's in good sportsmanship, right? That everybody should strive to do the best for themselves as they possibly can, make as much movement for themselves as they possibly can. That was not the way that I was brought up, but there were members in my family who lived that exact way. And whether it served them or not, I don't know. For myself, I was using those moments that I could have utilized for myself by putting spring in other people's lives, easing the bumps in the pavement, making sure that wrenches weren't being thrown into other people's lives and other people wouldn't be agitated by me. But I couldn't imagine, right? Because I was so hyper vigilant. I must have driven people just absolutely bonkers. When I was a kid, my mother used to send me away on holidays and stuff. I had an aunt who lived up in a 150-mile house in British Columbia and an uncle. They were trappers, and summer come along or winter break or spring break, and my mom would just like send my dad to have a short visit with his sister and just kind of leave me there for the length of the holidays. And then usually my aunt would drive me into, right, Williams Lake, I believe, the closest town that had a at that time it was Beaver Bus Line, right? But that's kind of defunct now. I would have loved to have done some lot of traveling by hopping bus. It was a very inexpensive way. My mother and dad we traveled lots when we didn't have an available vehicle. We traveled lots on those Greyhound bus lines and those Beaver bus lines. And for me, it was always an adventure. But I don't want to get too far off the track, or I'm just going to totally forget what I'm talking about, right? But we grow up and we have these really, really dynamic relationships, and in friendly competition, even with my sisters, right? Who could have the better boyfriends. It was always my sister Tracy. She was a looker. She was super sweet. All the boys loved her. I was never jealous of my sister. My mother was very beautiful too. And there was no resentment or envy when it came to my side of expectations of how other people were living their lives in comparison to what my life was moving in, right? you know at that time it was Cinderella. My dad used to call me Cinderella all the time, right? Cindy, two evil stepsisters, because I was the oldest, but I was always getting picked on and blamed for whatever mischievousness that my sisters were getting into. And it was just kind of running joke. Uh, Disney Disney movies always had a residence in my life. I could always find similarities and serendipities and messaging that always just felt like it was for me in the Disney movies. I just loved Disney movies when I was growing up. I really did. I lived vicariously through movies and television, and you can guarantee, Saturday matinee, you go to the theaters and you get there at noon, and you don't leave until like 6 o'clock at night at the end of the last movie, and you get like two or three movies you get to watch. And there was always a Disney film, or what was that, Family Robinson. That was a big one. Adventures of, well, there was another one, wilderness movie, Grizzly too. Lots of I was just thinking of that guy's name who went out with Sally Struthers. Yeah, doesn't matter, right? We're going back to the 60s and 70s, and it was an adventurous childhood. Like I said, me and my sisters, we were feral, and because of the roller coaster in the family income, because my dad was a compulsive gambler, so we were either very, very poor, or we were pretty well to do. There was no happy medium in things. If my dad hit a big jackpot, we were going on adventures. My mom was going shopping, and right, you get all the magnificent that you possibly can, because in the next minute, right, the rent would be gone, right, in a poker game. And we learned to live from moment to moment and riding the waves. And my dad walked in the door with a 25-pound bag of rice, right? We knew mom would be cooking one of her 101 recipes for rice. Big bag of rice was super cheap, and it would probably be enough to take care of the family until my dad could get back on his feet. And he never seemed to be down for very long in those misadventures that he had, but that was his life. It's what brought joy and frustration to it. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? It was the light in the darkness, and it was the darkness in the light. And we have to appreciate We are only human, and we're nowheres near close to being evolved to a state where right we could say, okay, this is good, we're happy where we are. Right, we got a ways to go. Right, I would like to think that there was a sense of humanness, right, to our last stage of evolution, which is going to be a billion years down the road. What would we look like? We're slowly losing our body hair, right? Women now are going bald, not just men, but it's we don't need that body coverage, that fur on our bodies anymore, because we invented clothing, we invented fabrics, we can evolved, and we have evolved in so many things that it got us to this point right now where we actually have an opportunity to make some serious decisions, some serious choices, right? Because our choices affect, I believe that however the world is supposed to end up, it's going to end up that way. But it's going to end up that way in enfolding of the human contribution, our choices in that. And we're not even close to being in that stage where we could even make a decent choice, right? We've made lots of decent choices along the way. But when I say a decent choice that would take us positively into our next stage of evolution. I think we're just starting, right, to wake up to the possibilities of that, where we can actually think about it, get some symptoms that it's what's happening and when it's going to happen, and just like global warming, so that we can prepare for the future, that we can ensure, right, that we are going to move along in our evolution, right? Maybe not all of us. We have been almost wiped out a half a dozen times already for different reasons: volcanoes, continents splitting, meteorites, right? Trees dying and not having enough oxygen, the sky going black and not being able to grow food, right? Having, so what, 56 was that year, the worst year in human history. And we survived that, right? Not everybody, but we survived that. And that's a good thing that we are multiplying ourselves to give us a better shot. But it's just not about evolving physically, it's about evolving mentally and evolving emotionally, so that, right, it's been a while, especially like in North American stuff. We're not used to those crazy town roller coaster wars and disputes and persecutions, right? But that's not to say that we're in the free and clear, and we're not going to have to deal with things like that. And so that's why I think that, life throws wrenches into our lives, gives us these resolutions and these heartbreaks and this grief, and give us all these feelings so that we don't lose sight, right? That we need to be resilient, that we need to be able to adapt and conquer and ride the waves in whatever situation comes across our path, right? We are. the most important creations on this earth, right? We have to be 100% selfish in that, and whatever it takes, right? Right? And I suspect at some point it's going to be like that bucket of crabs where we're all standing on each other's heads trying to get out of the bucket and not caring about what's going on underneath our feet, right? And that's the truth too, but that's going to show us, it's going to show us well, or it's going to show us unwell, right? And that's going to be reflected in the, well, I think in our movement forward. I think, right? You have to be seen, you have to be heard, you have to be able to contribute in a stewardship to something, right? And it's to each one of us in our choices to decide what that something or someone is going to be, because lots of times we give that service to people and just not service to take care of ourselves and take care of our family, right? Sometimes, we're making that movement forward, we're moving, but sometimes we're like the snowplow, we're just kind of taking and scooping along the way, not even looking what we're picking up along the way, because we don't have time to stop. But our heart says, right, adapt and conquer, find a way, ride the waves, do the best that you can. And so you do the very best that you can. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to get through it, but that's, I think, a lot of in our choices, and in a lot of, sometimes those hoops that we jump through, whether it's in our cities or in our countries, in our governments, right? Sometimes it's just in our families and in our school groups and in our work networks, right? But we have to find those little colonies, right? That we can have. You don't want everybody to be the same in that. You want that diversity. You want that difference going on, that mixture, right? Because that's what will help us to survive, right? Joe, if Joe Blow has that nice muscle in his heart that's going to be able to handle 40 below zero, because, right, the sky's covered and we're going into a winter for a couple of years. That's who we want. We want Joe because he's got a good heart, and right, it's nice and healthy, and it's going to be a lot of physical work, and right, I'm just doing silly analogies in my head, but it is, right, what each one can contribute, to a group, to make sure that, in their responsibility, that everybody is doing well and has what they need to get by, to give them the best shot of a little bit of movement forward. And I think, right, a lot of what's going on is just in that foreshadowing to give us an opportunity to better prepare. It doesn't mean to be, what do you call them, survivalists, right? It doesn't mean to be, doomsdayers, right? It doesn't mean to be these people, right? No offense to those people. That's an entire life. I want to live my life, not for something that's going to happen 20, 30, 40 years, maybe not even in my lifetime, but I want to be making sure that I'm aware, my family's aware, my community is aware, and that, if and when it should happen, that we have that hindsight to be better prepared in what's coming. I have no idea, right? Nothing. There are no timelines to anything, and there are no guarantees, because it's all in the choices, right, that we make, there is that end game, there is that destination, but things like a chessboard have to be played out in a certain way in order to better position so that moment is actually able to happen, because any one of us at any time could make a different choice that would send us in a totally different direction. And I know that because I have done that for myself. And I say for myself, not just to myself. Anybody looking outside of my brain would say that was just like crazy town. What was going on with you? But I couldn't imagine that there would have been any way for me to have gone about it any other way, right? Okay, you guys, we're going to. Did I pull my cards out tonight? No, I didn't. Okay, we're going to go into a card. 54 powerful words, right? And we're just going to grab a card and we are going to go into it for a couple of minutes and then we're just going to call it an evening. I'm feeling much better today. If you don't know, my cat passed away. We had to, I say we, I had to put her down. My sisters came with me, but that was my cat, my responsibility, and today was much better than it was yesterday. I could say I do make some strange sounds, but I wanna get it out of my system when I get that flush of remembrance or emotions or sadness or whatever. When it comes to me, I just let it happen, and I just let myself have those moments and I reflect on them, right? Because I recognize the deep grief, right? And I think I'm appreciating it more this time than I ever have with any of my other cats. I've had some pretty terrible breakdowns over, right? I love my cats. My cats have been a big part of my life, but in a day and two, right? I'm on to the next cat or the next adventure, and it's a fading memory unless I sit and stop and picture a moment that I had with that pet, and then, right? Otherwise, it's just gone. This time, right? I'm really paying attention to my emotions. I don't touch death very often. I don't. I'm very grateful. I have my four sisters. My parents both have been gone for decades, but I have all three of my sisters. There's four of us girls, and it's not something because we're just a small, tight family, right? We don't have large extended except whatever's born into our family. We're just gonna send some good cheer. Hope they get to their destination and this false alarm. They're going to turn right around and drive right back to the station, right? Knowing that they didn't have to work on somebody, that they didn't actually have to save a life, that it just resolved itself in the moment. Okay, maybe that was good that the fire engine went by my house, gave me a minute to come off the topics, right? But it has been an interesting experience. But I'm fine, right? I really am fine. I'm sad, but we all lose, and I'm just grateful. I'm not gonna say what I'm grateful that it just wasn't one of my sisters, because it's not fair in that comparison, because my cat was like family to me, just as important as my sisters. And that's the truth. And I don't think that's wrong to think that way, to feel that way, right? To appreciate a contribution of something that's different than you, right? It takes all kinds to make the world, right? And she contributed to my world 100%. Okay, you guys. Let's just grab a card. If you don't know the score, they're just 54 powerful words, just powerful words. We pull the card. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. There have been some words being pulled up consistently in the past month. That's food for thought in itself. A little bit something different today, a little bit something lighter. And just go into it for a couple of minutes. First perspective, first thing that comes to my mind. Here's the card. Here we go. Oh, here's one we haven't had for a while. Oh my goodness. We got the word commitment. Commitment is your word to see it through, right? Your word is the commitment to see it through. I break my promise lots of times. It's not my intent to break a promise. Oh, you're moving at the end of the month. I'll help you, and then totally forget. Yesterday was my niece's baby shower. She's pregnant again. We were supposed to go to her baby shower, but yesterday I just couldn't do it. Those waves of emotions were right. Anytime I took a step or got up to do something different than what I was doing, which was sit in my chair and spacing out, I would have a rush. And it was pretty tough yesterday, right? There was no way I would have been just negative energy at that baby shower. So I wasn't able to go, but I'd given my word that I would. Reasoning for me not going, I felt was a good reason, and I let them know that I wasn't coming. They knew, right, that my cat had passed away. Um, but it wasn't my intent not to not to show up. I break my word to other people all the time. To myself, I am not that lenient, right? Um, I felt bad not going to the baby shower, but at the same time, I knew, right? I was just going to bring everybody down, and I would be trying to get out of there as fast as I can. And knowing the state that I was in, I probably want to walk home, and she lives pretty far. It would have taken me. Oh, it would have probably taken me about 2.5 hours to walk home from our house. And I probably would have walked part of that way anyway before hopping a bus and taking the rest. Let me have a sip of my coffee. My throat's really dry today. Oh, that tastes good. I make a good cup of coffee. Going to bed early though. I am emotionally exhausted. And when I get totally emotionally, not mentally exhausted, is it mentally exhausted? I'm mentally exhausted and emotionally exhausted. And it makes me physically exhausted because I draw on those reserves, right? I'm drawing on reserves. And last night I looked at the clock and it was like quarter to 10. I go, oh my goodness, I want to go to bed, right? But I've got to stay up. Otherwise, I'm going to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I stayed up till about almost midnight, and then I crawled into bed, right? Hello, Eugene. I'm good. Thank you so much. I hope you're doing good too. Thank you for giving me the thumbs up. I super appreciate when you come in here and you give me the thumbs up like that. I really appreciate it. We had this word commitment, but I didn't get in the first thing that came into my mind. I just spieled off so it would make a little bit more sense, right? I always, right, mess up, not my intent, but when I give my word to people, I don't always, right? Things come up. My sister Tracy, we make plans to go to a movie, and then one of us will phone each other, no, I don't feel like it tonight. No, right? And we change the plans in that. But when I make a promise to myself and I commit to it, that's my word. And if I don't stick to it and I don't commit to it, if I can't keep that promise to myself, then for me, this is where I will be not happy with myself. This is where I'll feel like I'm unworthy or lazy or good for nothing. Can't even keep your word to yourself. You might as well. This is right when I'll start doing this. Um, because I don't know. I don't let myself off the hook like other people. I let other people off the hook. But that's because when I let other people off the hook, I sometimes put distance, right, between me and that other person. Even they're off the hook and we let that slide. We keep that in mind and say, no, we can't be around that. We can't be listening to that. We can't be seeing that, and we can't have that kind of influence going on in our lives, right? And so what we do is we move away from that, right? Our commitment is your word to see it through. Sometimes, it's not our intent, but we do break our words, and that's forgivable, right? My niece is not mad. My sisters are not mad that I didn't go. They 100% understand, and they were probably thinking in their own minds, "Oh my goodness, and he had a good excuse. She didn't have to go to the baby shower, and now I gotta go." You can tell how we feel. We do like getting together, so we use that opportunity to fill ourselves up with each other and fill ourselves up with each other, right? And then we're good. And like I said, like my sister's talking about, oh, it was uncomfortable because my ex was there, and I'm thinking, well, at least you don't have to see him again until the wedding, right? Right? So you just grit your teeth, get yourself get yourself through it, right? Get yourself through it, and then just feel good that at least you made that effort. I could have made an effort today, and gone to the baby shower, but or yesterday and gone to that baby shower, but my heart was just not in it. Kind of committed to myself to try to make myself uh, feel like I matter. That like I said, I don't let myself off the hook. And I think it's probably good for us to every once in a while to play hooky, to be the he, to be that, oh, I'm not doing it today, right? And that's that consideration to understand that um, those other pipes, they like to go 100 miles an hour. They do, right? But in order to keep that momentum going and to keep that love for what you're doing going, you have to do things slowly sometimes, right? And not allow yourself to be smacked in the face by things that you're just, right? You want to get used to the idea before you're actually riding that bike, right? Otherwise, you're just going to end up flat on your face with skin knees. Okay, you guys, that wasn't a very good one, but it is what I've got tonight, you guys. I am going back to doing my sitting in the chair and spacing out for another hour or so, and then I'll start contemplation about whether or not I can get my pajamas and crawl off to bed. Right? Make sure that I'm committing to that promise to myself that I was going to treat myself a little bit better, that I was going to pay attention, that I can let myself slide in some of those things, that I don't have to hold myself 100% accountable. I noticed that I was holding myself accountable when my cat passed away by not missing any of my live shows, and maybe out of consideration I maybe could have. But I thought it's company and that consideration to people who are keeping me company in that, right? Were keeping me company in that. And that's pretty special, right? That's allowing myself to be treated like I matter. And that's pretty nice, right? That somebody else does that for you, that you're not just having to do that for yourself, that you do that for yourself. If you're not doing that for yourself, you just got to be the one to make that step and paying attention and committing, right? Committing to treating yourself that way, because lots of times we are so concerned about what other people think of us, that we're running around trying to make sure that everybody else is comfortable, everybody else is okay, that we wear ourselves out in that, and we're not doing anybody else a service. Even more important, we're not doing ourselves a service by not taking care of whatever we need, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical. Okay, now I'll end it there. Thank you, Eugene. Have a great night. Okay, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.